All right, everyone. Hello, hello, and welcome to our conversation tonight. I'm super excited to be here with you. My name is Amanda Hinman. For those of you that I have not yet had the pleasure of meeting live, I am the founder of Hinman Holistic Health, and we specialize in helping high-achieving women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s to totally regain control of their health and vitality. And tonight I have my good friend, Denise Walsh here, who is a self-sabotage expert. She's helped many entrepreneurs successfully grow. She herself is a 7-figure business owner and has been teaching in the world of self-sabotage for, I don't even know. Denise, how long have you been teaching this work?
15, 20 years?
Yeah, a long time.
Almost 20 years.
Almost 20 years. And she is going to be sharing a lot of her expertise and brilliance with us tonight about how to quit quitting and finally finish and follow through on reaching your health goals and any goals in life in particular. But today, obviously, we're talking about it in the context of health and vitality and optimization. So let me go ahead and first of all, turn the floor over for you for a minute, Denise. Let me just remove my pin and you can pop up here. Welcome, Denise. Glad to have you here with us.
Hello, hello. Yes, thank you so much, Amanda. I'm excited to hang out with all of you tonight. And I do have a bit of a presentation and material to take you through, and then we can end with some Q&A because I want to be sure that everybody here has an action that they can easily implement to make health that much easier, because it doesn't have to be hard.
It doesn't have to be hard. Yes, that is key. Absolutely. And I do want to kind of give us a little preface here, because as we know, obviously, Hinman Holistic, we are always focused on the role that our hormones play in signaling to us. Hormones are really the messenger molecules in the body, and they give us that first glimpse, that first sign of, unwanted symptoms, whether it's like headaches or difficulty sleeping through the night peacefully, ruminating thoughts where you just feel like you have that swirling, anxiousness, unsettled feeling. Sometimes it's physical pain, aches and pains, in the body. Sometimes it's, just really sluggish metabolism. All of these signs are signs that our hormones and our physiology is imbalanced in some way. And I'm going to do a little bit of just kind of beginning information about kind of setting the stage of hormone dynamics so that you can dive in and see even more potently why what we're going to be talking about with Denise is a game changer. It really has such a huge impact on our health overall. So, and actually, Denise, can you give me, because you're host, access to screen sharing real quick? Let's see here.
I don't see it, so I'll just make you the host again.
Okay. We're bouncing back and forth of who's what. So I'm going to go to this. So some of you may be familiar with this framework. Some of you, this may be new. This is our framework at Hinman Holistic. We talk about our 5-step process to optimize our hormones and our vitality. Really, it's about identifying the root cause, what's happening in your body specifically, replenishing key nutrients, restoring digestive fire. And then step 4 is what we're doing a deep dive today. Reset your thinking, because your thoughts play such a critical role in our overall health and vitality. And then removing toxins, environmental toxins, and helping your body to be able to detoxify appropriately. So in general, I want you to think about this like your hormones act like a table, right? They really get to be in balance with each other. And it's an orchestration to kind of keep that body in a stable foundation with our health optimal. And when something throws that balance out of whack, it really affects a whole bunch of different systems. And I just give this as an example because many people are always surprised when they come to me to talk about, suboptimal thyroid function, or, I have diabetic insulin, resistance, or my estrogen levels and testosterone levels are really skewed. Well, they're all related. And especially when we talk about cortisol and stress, epinephrine, norepinephrine, they all impact each other. So you can see from this diagram, it's not like you can look at one hormone in isolation and have that be the only factor. Even when we talk about, thyroid, it's affected by our cortisol levels. It's affected by our adrenaline levels, which is epinephrine and norepinephrine. And it's important to know that when there's an imbalance in one, it starts to create a cascade and have unwanted symptom effects in this whole orchestration. And my last slide here that I'm going to share before we turn it over to Denise is this concept of an axis of interconnectedness. Our physiology is always signaling to its, one step to the next in the chain, starting with what's at the top, the hypothalamus, right? This is our thoughts. This is what's happening in our brain, how we perceive our environment. What are the circumstances? What are the meanings that we're giving to different situations? That is going to signal to the pituitary gland, which then will release endocrine, hormone tissue, and hormone activation. It will signal to the adrenals, whether or not you're stressed and fight or flight response, or you're in that parasympathetic rest, digest, and repair, and so on and so forth. It affects the thyroid, which impacts our metabolism. It affects our sex hormones. Everything is interconnected here. So you can't look at one piece of the puzzle and think it's going to make a shift. That's why this quote at the bottom by Charles Swindoll really summarizes what we're talking about today. Life is about 10% of what happens to you and about 90% of how you react to it. So with that having said, we are going to do that deep dive in step number 4 of our natural hormone solution process, which is really about becoming aware of your thoughts and how to reset your thinking so that you can set the stage for optimal health and vitality and wellness in the long term. So with that, let's turn it over to Denise. And Denise, have you dive in to share with us some insight about how our thoughts and especially our subconscious thoughts are really driving the show?
I was going to say they're driving the show, aren't they? Yes. Okay. Awesome. Well, that's a great intro. But I do need the rights back to share my screen.
Yep. Okay, hold on. Let me go back over here and make you host. All right.
Okay.
There we go.
All right. So, hi, you guys. My name is Denise Walsh, and today we are going to talk about how to quit quitting and finally finish. And I made it this title, right? Because how many of us have started a weight loss journey, a health journey, and then like 3 days later, we're like, screw it. And we never actually get started, and we aren't sticking to it long enough to actually see success. Well, a lot of people that I work with are just like that. And what we're going to do today is talk about why. Why do we self-sabotage? Why do we say we want something, but then not really follow through? And there's 3 key reasons why we self-sabotage. And then there's actually 4 reasons or 4 ways to overcome self-sabotage to make success easy. Because here's what the deal, right? If a healthy lifestyle is so hard, we're not going to stick to it. And so the goal isn't to go to a diet that then we bounce back from. And I've done some bodybuilding competition, so I can tell you what that looks like. But it's really about a healthy lifestyle that feels easy. Why? Because it's our new normal. So today I'm going to support you by giving you some clear steps to make some of those life changes that maybe you've been wanting to make for years. But if you're in this group, that means you have already said yes to committing to yourself, and you're 3 steps ahead of where you were at this time last year. Before we dive into the content, I'll quickly introduce myself. This is my beautiful family. Owen now, this one in the middle, is now in 6th grade, and Eli is now in 3rd grade. So I do need to update my picture. And we actually had to do IVF for my boys, which was surprising. And I was, nobody expects that necessarily. But I remember when Owen came out with red hair, I thought, did they switch him?
You're like,
else in the waiting room?
Yeah.
I know. And then I found out that has actually happened to people before. So I decided it was no longer a funny joke. But then when I found out I was pregnant with a second boy, I thought, well, there's no way they're going to look alike because Owen is so recessive. And here we go, 2 Irish boys. I guess recessive genes for the win. But part of our story is that we were actually able to quit our full-time jobs before we had them. So our kids have only known 2 work from home parents over the past 20 years, I've been able to work with Jack Canfield and John Maxwell and write some books and experience success in the network marketing industry, traveling the world, training and helping other people get unstuck and design a life that they love as well. As you can see, when you know these skills, you can really implement it in any area of your life, including fitness. So I've done a few bodybuilding competitions, which I don't really recommend for hormone health. But it is just an interesting piece of the puzzle, right? Because when you have these habits in one area, they will duplicate and like merge into all areas of your life. But I can tell you, it was not always this way. My story actually started at camp. This is me back in what I don't even know, 2000, nope, 19 something. This was 1999. Maybe 2000, 2001. I spent my summers as a camp counselor in New York City. And I remember these kids came to camp with their head down and their guard up. They really didn't know how awesome they were, right? They had gone through so much trauma in their few short years of life that they didn't believe in themselves, even in such a young age. And so I felt like I could see them 3 steps ahead of where they saw themselves. And throughout the summer, because they would come for a week and then go home for the weekend and then come back, we got to know them really well. And I got to see trust started to be built. I got to see like blossoming, their head came up and their guard went down, and they started to kind of step into themselves. And I remember thinking, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to help people know just how awesome they are. And so I got into the field of psychology. I got my master's in clinical psychology. I really thought that I was like off to change the world. And so if any of you have been in the helping professions, nurses, daycare workers, counselors, social workers, teachers, goodness, it didn't take long for me to go through what I call my quarter life crisis, which is like, I don't want to be here for the next 30 years, but I don't know what else to do. And so this is where I say, my spark was lit at camp. And it was here in this pivot point of, this isn't it, but I don't know what else to do, is where I really had to dig in and ask myself the same powerful questions I'm going to ask you. Because I was at a place that I like to call here. Here is where I say, I don't really like it, but at least I understand it. Here is where I know the paperwork, but I'm a zombie. That's how I was throughout the last few of my working years, right? And how many of us know people who stay here for a decade? I don't really like where I am, but I'm comfortable. I understand it. I don't really know what the grass is like on the other side, so I'm just going to stay here. And what happens is we will start to make a change. We'll set a New Year's resolution. We'll get a gym membership. And then what happens? Life. And we snap back to what's normal. Now, there's a few cool things that we can do with this information, right? We can create a personal vision of our future that produces passion. This is something like, I'm so excited about where I'm going. Like, heck yes, I'm getting up at 5 a.m. to work out, right? Whatever it is. Yes, I now love bok choy, because I'm so excited about where I'm going. Or we can do what I call leveling up here, which is what we're going to talk about. We'll talk about a little bit of it today, but here is where I say, how about when life happens, our normal is drinking a gallon of water a day? How about our normal is eating whole foods? What if it's normal for us to work out? In fact, I just got back from a week in Costa Rica and didn't really work out while I was there. And now I feel so gross, like Jello, because my normal is having consistent movement. And then the third piece to the puzzle is learning strategies for when life does happen, because it will, it's just how life works. Emotional stuff, of course, being a clinical psychologist, relationship struggles, limiting beliefs. Oftentimes people will say, I want to change, but I don't have time. And really, I say, is that actually true? Or is it you don't have energy, right? Because the things you are spending your time on are draining your energy. And so you're exhausted by the end of the day. So what's really the problem? Like, what do we really need to hone in on? Focus, clarity. Sometimes we need to know skills. And I think that's why you guys signed up with Amanda, because you're like, I've done it on my own. If I could, I would have already. Like, I need to know how. Like, what's the strategy? What are the and then we also set ourselves up for success by creating those boundaries, accountability, right? So we actually follow through. So needless to say, today we are going to really focus on leveling up here, because self-sabotage is saying you want to do something, but then not doing it. It's taking that one step forward and then snapping back to our normal. And some examples might be procrastination, perfectionism, self-doubt, second guessing, indecisiveness, wishy-washiness, having, a foot in both camps. In fact, on my Facebook today, I said, what's really holding you back? And what's fascinating to me, and it's like, I know this, but I'm always so like wowed by it. Nobody said a skill is holding them back.
Oh, that
Every
is
single
interesting.
person said, I am holding myself back. And I think that
Mm.
that's self-sabotage, where we're getting in our own way and we are taking ourselves out of our own game. So we don't want to do that anymore. And the reality is it's not your fault, because there's something called programming that is what is anchoring your here and shift, and it like becomes our default. But if we level up that programming, it can be easy. That's the fun part, is like, what if it were easy? So we're going to talk today about leveling up your normal. So let's dive right in. So the 3 reasons why we self-sabotage, and we'll talk about each one. And I'm going to give you some specific action steps to do right now or after this call, to take this and implement it immediately into your own life. So 3 reasons why we self-sabotage. Number 1, our subconscious programming. Number 2, our self-image. And number 3, stress. And I think Amanda would agree with this, right? The cortisol levels are a key indicator.
Mhm.
And we'll talk about how to de-stress on a consistent basis. But all of these things can trigger us into doing the thing we don't really want to do, but we do, right? So let's first start with, what is your subconscious? So 95 to 99% of our behavior is born out of our subconscious mind. It controls all of the systems in the body, and it's this intelligent field that was that created the body. And it's basically like hardwiring. So if you think of a computer system, the subconscious is the hardwiring. It's what makes things work. And it's so automatic, you don't even really realize that it's there. Our thinking, conscious mind really only makes up about 5% of our mind. Our subconscious mind declares our normal about our normal beliefs about self, others, and the world. And it's a sponge. So in your first 7 years of life, it absorbs everything that it deems normal. And it says, all right, this is normal. This is what my tribe does, and I want to be like my tribe. So a few more facts about the subconscious mind. The conscious mind can handle approximately 140 pieces of information, but the subconscious can handle between 11 million and 80 million pieces of information, which means you don't need to actually read it for your subconscious to absorb it. And we'll talk more about that later. We don't control our behavior. In fact, our environment controls our behavior. And there's studies that showed that when the Cosby Show was on air, more African Americans went to law school. There's also studies that showed that when the Fast and the Furious was released, like car break-ins that weekend skyrocketed. It's
Seriously?
fascinating. And people think it's their own idea. Like, oh, I have an idea. But how many of us see, like, well, not anymore, but we used to see a pizza commercial. We're like, oh, I should get pizza. No, but that's just another example of how our environment dictates what we do. And we think that it's our choice, but it's not. It's fascinating. Our subconscious seeks safety, security, and survival inside the environmental average, which means it really just wants to fit in. It wants to fit into the normal. It wants, that's in olden days, right? If you didn't fit in, you are by yourself and a tiger would eat you. So like our innate desire is to fit in with the crowd. And our subconscious copies, mirrors, mimics, and repeats what it sees in your environment because it wants to be safe. Now, this is the fascinating thing. Our subconscious cannot differentiate between a real event, an imagined event, and what's on the screen. So all of those things tell the subconscious what is normal. And then our subconscious finds a way to make it so. So where does this behavior come from? Between the ages of 0 and 7 are our programming years. And during these years, we and our children will spend most of their time in alpha and theta brain waves, which is the same state that a person is in when they're hypnosis or meditation. This is the sponge state. And we're going to talk a bit about how we can reprogram this now. You know, we're not screwed for life. You can think of you didn't learn how to drive a car, right? Before the age of 7, and now that's automatic. There's things that you can do with repetition that can become so ingrained that it becomes our normal. So there's ways around this, but this is important to know because
I want to jump in there, Denise. It's really so those of you that know, in our community, we have one of the tools is the hormone balancing hypnosis, simply because it helps to activate that different brainwave state and create patterns and repetition of just a different belief system and a different normal of my body naturally finds balance. My cells seek rejuvenation. Like it's giving those messages that are often different than what we assume, you know, just from our programming in our environment.
Yeah, I love that. And you're speaking life into your body, which then your body goes, oh, this must be my new normal. Mm-hmm. And it starts to shift. So you can think about this in terms of your own home. You know, I often have people do their family views of health, your community views of health, and the media views of health. What was going on in your youth that might be a foundation? What was the attitude around health in your home? Was there a focus on healthy eating or exercise? Was it more of a fast food family? I mean, I know my mom made family dinners of like, oh, I can't even, what is it? It's like mac and cheese, but for adults.
Oh, like
hamburger helper.
Hamburger helper. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, that was our family. Yeah,
I grew up with that too.
And so was it considered hard? Was it part of like, just, you want to think about what was your initial foundation of health? And now again, we're not screwed for life, but it's just interesting to see what was our normal. What's normal in your community? Was your community focused on fitness? Did people go to the gym? Or most people overweight? What did that really look like? You can think of the community you grew up in, the church you went to, the community activities, Girl Scouts, you know, your school activities. What was normal? And then you can also think about the media and the media's view of health, fitness, and body image. Now, of course, we would rarely say that the media's view is healthy, right? Not at all. But it is just interesting information for you to take a look at your formative years and say, okay, what was programmed? Because that's the default. That's what you're snapping back to when life happens. The second thing that impacts us because of this programming, right? It impacts this hardwiring, impacts the way we view ourselves and the world and others, is our self-image. You know, the way we view ourselves matters. And so if we imagine ourselves as being somebody who's not healthy and it never works, and, you know, we have those self-defeating thoughts and statements, then we kind of rise up to our own expectation, don't we? Because our behavior is derived from our self-image. And so while we're reprogramming the subconscious, it's going to naturally reprogram our self-image. And that's when confidence really starts to soar. And then finally, stress. Yep. This is like, you know, when you're living on an 8 or 9, and then it doesn't take much for you to blow. That's what this like represents, because so many of us are living in chronic stress, and then it doesn't take much. We're multitasking, we're running from thing to thing, we're standing in long lines, our anxiety's up to here, we've got too much on our plate, and we're living in fight or flight mode. When we're in fight or flight mode, blood goes from our brain into our limbs because it's like wants to fight, right? And it's not digesting our food, and it's not giving blood to our organs. And again, stress, especially if you think of, well, I was reminded of this when my sister was here for 2 weeks, and she brings her 3 kids and they stay for 2 weeks in the summer. And so we had 5 kids in our house, and it was loud, because we said no electronics. So if you have no electronics, then it's loud.
Then you have noise.
That's what happened. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I need wine. Like, this is so intense. And I thought, this is called self-sabotage, because my emotions were getting high. I was getting stressed, and all of a sudden I want to do the easiest thing, not the long-lasting thing. And when we're stressed, we want to do what feels the best in the moment, and we don't have the long-term thinking. So the question to ask yourself here is, are you living in drama, which is like high stress? Or are you living in dreams, which is like the rest and digest and zen and peacefulness? And the goal would be to live most of our days, right, in dream world. So in the rest and digest. And so the strategy here is to ask yourself, what brings you joy? And then, do you have fun on your calendar, right? Things that make you laugh, things that calm you down, massages, walks in the park, whatever it is, journaling time in the morning, personal development. And then it is in your calendar, not so that you do it once a year on your like one family vacation, but that you're doing it consistently enough to keep your stress at bay.
We call this vitamin J for joy. I'm like, it's vitamin J is as important as vitamin D,
I love that. I love it. Yes. Okay. So, now I added a 4th one, because if you don't have health, you guys, you can't live in your dreams, right? It's so tricky to stay focused on goals if you don't feel good. And so I do think that health is a key component to here. But the 4 ways to overcome self-sabotage are home, hypnosis, habits, and then taking care of your health, which is what you're doing here. Home is fascinating because, again, the subconscious is picking up 140 million bits per second. And so I call this hacking your home. What are you watching? You think of your eyes, your ears, and your mouth. Like, what are you watching? What are you listening to? Who are you hanging out with? What are you talking about? And is it speaking life into your goals, or is it moving you further away? So a couple strategies here is I put Post-it notes all over my house around Valentine's Day a couple years ago. I just put like super like kind and thoughtful and smart and all these things on my boy's door, because I know even if they're not reading it, their subconscious is, and so we can do the same thing. Is our goal on our refrigerator? Is it on our mirror? Is it by our bed? What are we listening to on the way to work? Like, your day can be changed by turning off the news, turning off the radio, and listening to a podcast. Who are you hanging around? And really taking inventory of this, because what's fascinating is if you even just give yourself a 2-week trial, like, all right, let's just see if it works. You'll find that it will domino effect and impact other areas of your life, even if you aren't expecting it, because it's speaking life into you, and you'll sleep better. I mean, lots of things happen. Okay, next is the hypnosis, which I'm so excited that you guys already do, because you're right. This is a huge piece of retraining your subconscious brain to have a new expectation. And so this alpha and theta is when your brain waves are slow enough to start absorbing again. So right before you go to sleep, in my program, I give them 1 per month. It's a 3-month program, right? So they get a new hypnosis to take them on that journey to start really reprogramming those subconscious expectations and telling your body that there's a new normal in town. And this is what we want, how we want our body to function. And then when life happens, right, the goal of this is it's resetting your internal GPS. So when life happens, it comes back to this new normal and feels easy. And then habits. So this is where we really talk about not just our to-do habits, which we will, but also our thought habits, because you become what you do most of the time. And it's repetition that creates these new neural pathways. So let's first talk about action. What do you do? Now, I'm sure you guys have heard of this, but one strategy here is called habit stacking, where we pair a new habit with something we already do and something we already enjoy. For example, I only watch my favorite shows while I'm working out. That's like the only time that I do it. And so if I want to watch those shows, I go work out.
Ooh, that's a good one, Denise. Like I'm getting on the stair climber. I'm getting,
Yes.
yeah,
Even
that's
if it's
actually
just
really
like a
interesting.
walk around the neighborhood or, or walk on my treadmill but I save all my shows and just watch them while I'm exercising. Another thing could be like my time where I would say I could have more sugar is like right after work between 4 and 5. So instead, I've really had to be intentional about how I spend that time to create a new habit. So I'm not just like in the kitchen snacking or something.
Mhm.
So habit stacking is important because it's not about changing everything at once. It's really about saying, all right, what is one thing that I can now make my new normal? How can I drink more water for the next month? Make it my new normal. And then I'll stack another new habit on as well. The other thing that's interesting about habit stacking or creating new habits is having a strategy. In my program, I have people do journaling, water, exercise, and the hypnosis. And then they do one thing towards their 3-month goal every day. So they've got like 4 to 5 things that they're doing on a daily basis. And if they're having a tricky time doing it, I'll say, well, what's your strategy?
Mm.
And they will say, what strategy?
What do you mean? I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So of course you're not going to accidentally drink a gallon of water a day. So when that was a new habit for me, when I was doing the bodybuilding stuff, I was like, I'm not going to drink 7 little water bottles or like, that's a lot of counting. So I had to find a water bottle. This one's a half gallon. I drink 2 of these a day. There's another one I had where I drink 3 of them and I put, BCAAs in one or lemon juice or things. So it tasted good. And I had a strategy. I had a goal to drink one while I worked out in the morning. I had a goal to drink another one between like 9 and noon. And then I had a goal to drink the other one between noon and 5. And that was my strategy. So because it was in my mind, I stuck to it more than if I just hoped, right? So ask yourself, what is the strategy for this new habit that I want to create? And then the other thing are habits of what we think. And this is truly where we get to decide what thoughts to believe and what thoughts to release. This is when we are creating new neural pathways. And so a neural pathway is basically in your brain. It's like your brain doesn't want to have to think so much. So it takes these shortcuts and these shortcuts become habit. So for example, if there's always, if a similar trigger means, oh, now I've got a XYZ, like you go to that same spot because of the automatic thinking that's happening. Somebody is rude and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, nobody likes me. Like, is that true? No, probably not. But it's an automatic thinking thought to go there. And so a similar trigger can take you there, even if it's not accurate at all. And so what we want to do is we want to identify those thoughts and we want to challenge them and then replace them with something that does support us.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing here is to recognize what negative thoughts you have. And so this could be, and usually it's the opposite of being your own cheerleader, right? It's like talking yourself down. It's telling yourself you're not good enough, that it's not going to work anyway. You kind of give up before it even tries. I know when I was doing the bodybuilding stuff, I had to listen to people who had been on the journey and hear their success stories so that I knew that the hard was worth it, right? So I had to get connected to my why. I had to hear stories of people who were successful and who have, done it before me. And I had to really focus on what it is that I wanted. I got this. I can do hard things. This craving will pass. I'm proud of my efforts. Tomorrow, I'm going to feel so good about my decisions today. And whether or not that's like actually true, if I'm really feeling it, I am my own biggest cheerleader because nobody cares more about my goals than I do. And when you're your own biggest cheerleader, and when you're decreasing your stress level by adding in fun and doing your journaling and getting your vitamin J in, what we want to do here is, I call it the finish line feeling, where we're saying, I'm going to feel so proud of myself tomorrow. I'm going to feel so proud of myself tomorrow because of the decisions I made today. And again, when you think about being in chronic stress, we're making the easiest choice. But when we're decreasing that cortisol and we are, we're choosing the thoughts rather than those old automatic thinking, we can decide, I'm going to feel so proud of myself tomorrow. And that delayed gratification gives what I call authentic pride. It builds that authentic pride where you're like, yes. And it really cements this into your self-image. It cements this into your programming. And one strategy to use for this is the Mel Robbins 5-second rule, where it's like, I don't really want to, but I'm going to go do this XYZ thing because I'm excited about how I'll feel about it tomorrow. And the goal here is to build that authentic pride, which is truly building that inner strength, inner confidence, and discipline.
And that is so true, Denise. I'll speak I would say from a health perspective, my area of the biggest self-sabotage is to go back to craving something sweet at the end of the day, especially if it's been a stressful day. It's that's almost like it was programmed to be like a reward for me, right? Early on. So it's so true, because when I'm in that space of it truly builds that inner pride and that authentic sense of self-worth when you can practice that delayed gratification. And in the moment, sometimes it can be challenging, but I love that idea of just having almost like a go-to different thought to remind yourself to bring that back. Because it can start to be like a loop playing in your head, right? Where you think about it when you're just like, should I, shouldn't I? Should I, shouldn't I? So it's like having a different replacement thought can start to interrupt that pattern.
Absolutely. And then the next morning, when you are so proud of yourself, you'll just reinforce that new thought. And the goal is that eventually, because we know that cravings don't last, if you wait long enough, it'll fade and you won't even care about that brownie anymore. And so it's like using those skills in the moment, and then eventually that craving just passes, but it does take some time. So my last question to you guys is, imagine what life will look like in 1 year when you have hit your goals. And so I'm going to take you through, I've got 2 exercises to end, and one is truly just your imagination. Because we know that the subconscious cannot differentiate between a real or an imagined event, we want to use our imagination to speak life into what it is that we want and to see ourselves 3 steps ahead of where we are now. So if you are available to, I would love for you to relax your shoulders and close your eyes and take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. And just slow your thoughts down. Take a few more slow breaths. And I want you to imagine it is March 16th, 2024. You feel so good. You have learned so much over this past year that you're implementing into your life, that it's your new habit. You're drinking water, you're eating whole foods, you're balancing your hormones, your mindset's back on track. You've most likely released some of those extra pounds that were hanging on when things were out of whack. You have more energy. You have less pain. Imagine waking up in the morning feeling so good. Not only do you physically feel good, but you're proud of yourself. You start your day with a smile. As you go through your day, the healthy habits that you've learned are normal. And any sort of temptation or family gathering, especially around Christmas, doesn't even derail you, because your habits are strong, and any derailment, you get right back on track. It's been a year, and you're really proud of the effort that you put in and that delayed gratification that you created for yourself, because every morning you woke up and you thought, man, I'm really proud. I want you to imagine your physical body, imagine how you feel, imagine your thoughts, imagine how feeling good is impacting others in your life. In fact, in your imagination, I'd love for your future self, the one from 2024, to step into your imagination and give you some words. Maybe she's proud of your efforts. Maybe she says it's easier than you thought. Maybe she said it's worth it. You imagine your future self giving you the words that you need to hear right now. And as she fades away, you take that message to heart and you can come back into this room. The reality is life can be in such a different place at this time next year, if we let it. I have one last exercise to end as another reminder that our body follows the mind. And so, if you want to, you can stand up. I've never done it sitting, but like my cameras, see if I'll try it. And so in this exercise, what I want you to do is raise your right arm and move, like twist to the left like this as far as you can. And then like see how, you go like this and like remember the spot that you're at. Okay. And then you can bring your arm straight forward and back down. All right. So now I want you to close your eyes again, and don't physically move your arm this time, but just imagine your right arm going up, twisting to the left easily and effortlessly past that first spot about 2 inches. Just imagine your right arm there. And then imagine your right arm going back to the front and down. And then one more time in your imagination, your right arm goes up easily and effortlessly past the first spot, past the second spot, about even further. And in your imagination, your arm goes to the front and then back down. And now we can open our eyes. And in real life, I want you to put your arm up and twist to the left and see how far you can go this time.
Did you go further?
So how many of you went further than you did the first
further.
time?
I did.
Isn't that fascinating?
That is interesting.
Well, and it's not like you just did yoga, right? There's nothing, you didn't stretch in between, but our body follows our mind, and you can always do more than you think you can. So utilizing these skills to retrain your brain and your subconscious will help health be easy.
Oh, I love that. Denise, thank you so much. This is such good insight and good information. Wow. I'm like, again, I live this work and love this work all the time. And I think it's just so powerful for us to keep in the consciousness, in our awareness all the time. I'd love to, as we're wrapping up here, does anyone have any question or any new aha that dropped in or stuck out in a new way today from our conversation? No, it was all very clear, huh?
Mhm.
Amanda's laughing. Any aha, Amanda?
Oh, thank you. I love this. And a lot really was like, this is perfect timing for me and a lot of the things that I've been thinking about. But I really love just visualizing. I love the piece at the end and my future self sort of giving me some advice. So I know my future self would be like, come on.
You got this.
It's fine. You got this. Like, so that is definitely something that I'm going to take moving forward. And also just like, yeah, making new habits. I was thinking about how much my default thoughts kind of go sometimes to a negative place, and I can like rewire that and choose to reframe it as something positive.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You're not screwed for life. Like those negative thoughts can be retrained.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just a very intentional, like you said, Denise, it's a strategy. It's an
Mhm.
intentional plan. I would love to hear, Denise, would you mind sharing with us a little bit about what are some of the strategies? I mean, obviously your environment at home and stuff, but are there any like specific one or two examples that you make sure that you adopt daily as your subconscious like wellness routine?
Well, the first thing when you're especially experiencing negative thoughts is to catch it. Because we just think it's normal and then we ride the wave and then we are in stinking thinking mode, or we've got monkey mind, as we say, where we're just like, rah. And so catching it is step one. And so there's a whole list of cognitive distortions that are like all or nothing thinking. When you're feeling the should statements, this should be this way, and like says who, catastrophizing, making a mountain out of a molehill. Something happens and now all of a sudden I'm living in a van down by the river and like the world's over. And so what are these things? And again, we all have them. There's no judgment. It's just being aware when you're doing it and trying to catch it is step one. And then we ask ourselves, what's true? What's really true right now? So anxiety is born out of a fear of the future or a regret from the past. And so in the healing work, we want to heal any of those regrets, heal any of those, guilt, resentments, all of that kind of stuff. But we also don't want to live in the future of what ifs, because that's not happening right now either, right? So what is true? What's really happening? What do I really want? What's the most important thing right now? And kind of talking yourself down. So I have a whole list that I take people through on how to bring their thoughts back. And the cool thing is at first you like write it down, and you go, what's my thought? Rate it on the scale of 1 to 10. And what's the truth? And you ask yourself all these questions. Eventually you memorize that list. Yes. And eventually you can turn your thoughts around much faster. That doesn't mean the feelings are as quickly. Like sometimes I'll be thinking things and I'm still mad. But eventually the feelings do follow, because the feelings typically are after the thoughts. So starting here, and then your body will follow.
One other question I have for you, Denise, too, because this is something that I've been doing a lot of work on recently, is not making myself feel worse because again, I've been doing this work for many years. And so recognizing the impact of having negative thoughts, like a negative thought pattern going. And then it's like, I almost beat myself up more, been like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. And I know better. And it's like, so I'm curious if you have any, just insights or strategies about how to just truly know that we will have them. It's almost like accepting, and what I find is if I can get to a place of grace and compassion for myself, like nothing's wrong with me. It's just societal programming. It's like, that was the hardware that was installed to just like mitigate that shaming or blaming myself type of a thing.
My husband will sometimes be like, why don't you go read your own book? Like, but so absolutely. And that is just part of the game. And I think the thing that I've really learned to do is to not take life so seriously and not to take things as personally, especially being a therapist. I call it my rubber ball. People would ask me, how do you take in all these stories every day and all these things? And I would say, I don't. I can be like so in your moment and really listening, but not own it. you know? And so I try to keep that sort of not taking things personally, not owning other people's stuff, that kind of thing, as much as I can. And trusting the process. I think that's been a huge piece of it too. Like, it's, especially being an entrepreneur, there's some days where I'm like, this is so hard. And then like an hour later, I'm like, I love my life.
Yeah, totally.
It's just how it goes. And so not taking any of those like to heart, and just know that it's just a part of the journey. Like, life is happening. We're in the midst of it. It's okay. And I trust it's all going to work out.
Yes. Oh, so good. I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Denise, for sharing this great value. And I know that the women here have had so much insight and new strategies to work with, and many more that have already asked for the recording. So they're going to get to have access to it as well. Wonderful. Wonderful. Did you say you had anything that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I have a freebie for you guys if you're interested. Often people will tell me, you know, if you're in that stuck phase or maybe in a pivoting phase, they'll say, I don't know what I want. I just know I don't want to be here. And so clarity is one of the first steps that I teach in the Dream Life Pathway. Like, what do you want? Why do you want it? Do you know how to get there? And so the freebie is called the Dream Board Brainstorming Kit. And it asks you questions a little bit about what we did today, like what brings me joy? What are my strengths? What's my ideal day? And it gives you a place to brain dump it all. And then maybe even take some stuff off, right? Because we don't need to add to our calendar. We want to reprioritize. So we take things off too. And then it gives you like a whole bunch of pages of things you can cut out and put on your dream board, and just really become sparked again about where life is taking you. And that is at dreamworkbook.com/dreamboardkit. So I'll put it here in the comments.
Yes, you can put it in the chat. That would be great. And then we can definitely make sure we share that. Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I am just so thrilled. Like I said, this was such powerful information. Thank you, Denise, for your expertise and just really, really great insight. I love it. And hopefully this is a good inspiration for all of us to recommit to our home environment, to the messages. You know, what are the thoughts that we're noticing? What are the patterns that come up, so that we can start to look for ways to question them, be in the present moment, and utilize the tools like hypnosis and so forth as well.
For sure.
Amazing. So Denise has put in here this free dream workbook if you want to have a chance to check it out. And I will also make sure that we include that in the recording as well. Well, thank you so much, ladies, for joining us.
Yes.
And wishing everyone to have a fantastic night.
Yes. Keep up the good work. This is just the beginning.
It is. It's just the beginning.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.